Colton, I'm older, and I don't know if, this is even going to happen for us. It was all very calculated, but one night I was in the bathroom and I noticed some blood. If you haven't gone through it yourself, you have a family member that's gone through it. I had to take some shots in the morning, some in the evening. They had to be timed just right.
What was it like knowing the genders?
This created this beautiful baby. You have to believe that even if there was just a 1% chance that this process is worth it.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Lisa Green from Lisa J. Green Photography. And today's episode is a special one, close to my heart. I have the absolute joy at introducing to you someone very dear to me, my niece, Lauren Carson. Recently, I had the privilege of photographing her maternity session. And during that time, I heard her incredible story. After listening, I knew I had to ask her if I could share it here with you. This story is one of faith, hope, perseverance, and the undeniable power of prayer. It's raw, it's real, and it's a beautiful reminder that miracles still happen. So sit back, take a breath, and be inspired. This is Lauren's story.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Well, we've talked about this, and I know Palmer is 6 months old now.
She is.
But I think everybody needs to hear your story.
Okay.
So let's talk about it.
Okay.
So you and Colton got married and decided to start a family right away. Why was that so important to the both of you?
It's important for both of us because it's something that we've always wanted. We both, just how our lives had progressed, decided to get married later on in life. We didn't start our family super early. We kind of lived our life in our 20s and our 30s. And, when we finally met and started dating, we were older. I was 36 when we decided to get married. And we even had a conversation prior to that where I'd said, Colton, I'm older, and I don't know if, this is even going to happen for us. And, he said, Lauren, I love you. If it doesn't happen for us, it doesn't happen for us. We're just going to try our best. So we knew that right after we got married that, literally on day one, we decided to, start trying for a baby, and that was going to be the journey that we were going to have from day one as soon as we got married.
So you started working on trying to have a baby. Mm-hmm. What were the first few months when you were starting to track and everything about hoping each month and navigating the expectations?
I don't think I fully understood whenever I would hear couples talk about trying, I don't think I, could understand really what that meant. Right. I thought it was just, you try, and if it doesn't work, you try again. But the emotion that comes into, being so down to the minute on, when you would ovulate, and, it has to be today, and we have this window, and it was all very calculated, which was challenging. And, you get so hopeful that, this is going to be our time.
Okay, so after 6 months of navigating all of that and trying, you decided that you would be referred to the fertility clinic.
Yes, so whenever I went to my my first OB appointment, basically everything is on your age. If you're 35 and older, there's certain protocols. Less than 35 years old, there's others. And so since I was 36, my OB said that she would give me 6 months of us being able to try on our own before she would refer me to a fertility specialist there at OU. And so we tried for 6 months, wasn't able to get pregnant, and so she placed that referral in for us.
That's awesome. So, kind of tell me about that referral into the fertility clinic. What happened exactly?
To my surprise, whenever she told me that she would put that referral in, she said, now you're going to have to be patient. These appointments, usually the first time you're able to be seen is about a 6-month wait.
Okay.
And when I made that call and they took my information, they said, we actually have an opening. There was a cancellation and we can get you in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And in that moment, whenever I hung up the phone, I remember calling my sister. I called my sister first and I said, you will never guess what just happened. My 6-month wait just turned into 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I had this just sense of peace that came over me that I think this is going to work.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like the stars, had
Right.
aligned
So much
a
hope.
little bit. And in that moment, I was just, okay, I can do this, and we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
So, right before you were going to start the treatment, you found out you were pregnant.
Yes.
So, can you tell me a little bit about that?
So there's a first procedure that they do before they start any kind of treatment. It's called a HSG, and basically they go in and it's under x-ray, and they take some dye that they will insert just to make sure that everything is clear, that there's a clear path going from your ovaries into your uterus, and that there's no blockage. That in itself is not considered to be a treatment, but I believe they said there is a 30% increase in people after they have basically kind of that flushing and that procedure done, that it can increase your risk of getting pregnant up to 3 months. And it did for us.
Okay.
I was not expecting that to happen. But the first month after that procedure was when we were actually able to get pregnant on our own.
Okay. That's pretty awesome.
Yes.
But that moment of celebration didn't last very long.
It didn't. We kind of celebrated quietly. We were very excited, and I, took the pregnancy test, and I showed it to Colton, and we both thought, okay, this was meant to be. Here we were going to, try all of these extra steps, but we were able to do it. We were able to do it on our own. But one night, I was in the bathroom, and I noticed some blood. And I had kind of said, oh my gosh. And Colton said, what's going on? And I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. I just thought maybe it's something minor. Let's just take a deep breath. Kind of knew inside that maybe something might not be right. Hopeful for the best. But then that next morning, the bleeding got heavier and got heavier. I was at work whenever it happened. And I knew that something wasn't right. And I had called my doctor's office, let them know, and they wanted me to come in to get some blood work done. That confirmed that I was pregnant, or had been pregnant, just because my hormone levels were high. And then they had me come in 2 days later to see where my levels were, and they were trending down. So I knew that I had miscarried at that time.
Yes. So after that, how did you make space to grieve about the miscarriage?
I think I just tried to almost compartmentalize it, it was hard. I almost felt like a failure.
Right.
That, what did I do wrong? What did we do wrong? Am I able to do this? I did it in privacy, which looking back on it is not what I needed.
Right.
Did it behind closed doors.
Right.
I should have leaned on Colton a little bit more than I did. I just tried to, whenever I would have a moment to myself, that's when it would really, really hit me. But doing it alone is not what I needed
Right.
in that moment. But with all those emotions and feeling like a failure, I kept it to myself a lot.
Right. So at that point, you began to open up and need support.
Yes. I started talking about it a little bit to my coworkers. And it's interesting. It's when you do start talking to people, you realize, in any situation, how actually common something is. And, if you haven't gone through it yourself, you have a family member that's gone through it.
Right.
And so the more I talked, the more I opened up, the more I was able to lean on people because they had been there too.
Right.
Pregnancy loss is unfortunately more common than you think. And in community, is where you find peace and find, just the support that you need. And so the more I opened up, it eased that process a little bit.
Right. So after that, when you were ready to try again, you started with IUI. Can you
Yes.
explain what that is? What was the experience like for you?
So I told myself that I was probably going to wait about 6 months from that miscarriage just to kind of get my mind right again. But after about 3 months, I felt like I was ready. I knew that my body was able to conceive. It just wasn't right at the time, and so I actually called my doctor's office and said I'm ready. So IUI is intrauterine insemination. And basically what that looks like is the medication that I took a medication called Clomid, and that allows your body to produce not just one, but maybe 2 or 3 large mature follicles. So it creates an environment where your body will ovulate a mature egg. And 36 hours before the procedure, I would take a shot in my abdomen. It was called a trigger shot. And that way, whenever they did the procedure, they knew it at that 36-hour mark, almost to the minute, that egg would be released and that it could be fertilized. So that process allows a catheter to go through the cervix in order for you to still almost naturally get pregnant on your own, but with help of just some minor medication
Right.
to do that.
So after about 4 unsuccessful rounds, you decided to move forward with IVF. So what was that moment like, and can you explain what IVF is?
Yeah. So my doctor actually, asked me what I wanted to do. If I wanted to continue to go forward with more rounds of IUI or go to IVF. And
let me stop you there.
Sure.
So what is the percentage of women like you, couples like you, and explain to me a little bit about the situation that you and Colton were in before that you ever even started this. Explain that. Just go ahead and explain.
Sure. So there are a lot of tests. before we even started the IUI process that both me and Colton would have to go through. There were procedures for me, but there were a lot of blood work for both of us, just to make sure that, we were both healthy. They did blood work to test for genetics to see if, there was a chance that, maybe we wouldn't be able to conceive if we both had, certain, genes or what have you. But we were both healthy. All of my scans looked perfect. All of our blood work results came back perfect. And so we were told that we fall in the category of 10% of the population that has just what they call unexplained infertility. And that in itself was a little bit bittersweet.
Yeah.
I was grateful that we were both healthy,
Right.
and that everything looked good. But there was also nothing to fix.
Right.
I thought if there was something wrong, we could fix it. But there wasn't. And so, I was just hoping that with time, that it would be our moment.
Right. So what is the percentage of your category getting pregnant with IUI? I'm taking you back a little
Yeah.
bit to talk about that because I think that's important. So what is the percentage of y'all getting pregnant?
So with my age, it's actually pretty low.
Okay.
With IUI. The younger you are, typically that your chances increase. They also say with each round, your percentage of conceiving increases. But ours was only about a 10 to 20% chance with the IUI.
Okay.
So after the 4 rounds, I just felt like, okay, maybe we need more.
Okay.
Maybe we need more than this.
All right. So that takes us back to the IVF and how it can be a little demanding in the emotional process. What stood out to you most, that part of the journey? And also talk about a little bit about the egg retrieval, because that's very interesting to me.
So I think what stands out to me the most with the IVF journey and everything that it entails is, just how precise everything has to be. I remember getting my medication for the first time. I came home and I had 3 big bags of medication, and I lined them all out on the table. And I was just looking at every single box, every syringe, and just thought, if this is what it's going to take, then this is what it's going to take. And it was everything just timed to the T. I had to take some shots in the morning, some in the evening. They had to be timed just right. Blood draws, just to get my hormone levels precise. They couldn't be too high. They couldn't be too low. Everything had to be just right. And sometimes those appointments would fall whenever I would have to work. And so, again, in community, leaning on my coworkers, everyone thought, this is a journey for all of us. And so it was really neat how other people stepped in to allow me to, do the things that I needed to do. Colton was there every way, every chance I did a shot. He didn't want to give them to me.
Right.
But he was there to support me, and he said, all right, we'll go to bed, but I'm going to stand here once, watch you do your shots, and so that you're not doing this by yourself. And so it was coworkers, it was Colton, it was all very, very neat. But the egg retrieval process, multiple shots in my abdomen. And basically, the goal for that is for your body to make as many eggs as possible. So usually every month, whenever you ovulate, your body releases 1 egg. During the egg retrieval process, you're growing as many as you can. so that day, whenever I went in, they actually have to put you under anesthesia for that. So I had an anesthesiologist that was there, as well as my doctor and a nurse. And once they put me under one by one, they would go in and they would take each egg and they would put it down into a test tube, basically. And the day of my egg retrieval, they were able to pull 21 eggs out. And then every day, every 24 hours, they would look to see how those embryos would grow. So from those eggs, under a very precise microscope, they would inject to create the embryo. And I would get an update along the way every 24 hours. And I went from 21 eggs to 14. So only 14 of those 21 eggs were mature, which means that they were able to grow as big as they could, but also those were the ones that they created the embryos out of. So on the first day I had 14. Then the following day I went to 8, I believe. And then after 72 hours, I went to 6 embryos. And of those 6, they grade them on a scale from A to C. And you can choose to do what they call a frozen embryo transfer or a fresh embryo transfer. A fresh embryo transfer means that they will transfer basically the best one. If you have a grade A embryo, those are the ones that they will do first. But of those 6 that I had, they said, we don't give many A's. We have a very, hard grading system. So B's make babies and C's make babies. Don't get discouraged if you don't have any A's. And 4 of my 6 embryos actually tested as A embryos.
Awesome.
So we froze them and also chose to take that an extra step further. So since I was over the age of 35, we had those embryos sent off for genetic testing, just to make sure that those embryos that we did transfer were compatible with life and chromosomally had everything they needed to be viable.
Right. So after that, you did learn about the genders.
I did.
Yes. So what was it like knowing the genders and having to decide what came next?
I thought it was going to be fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be an easy decision. So of those 6 embryos that we had sent off for genetic testing, 4 of them came back compatible with life and that they were viable embryos. Knowing that they knew that information, I asked them if they knew the genders, and they said, we do. Do you want to know them? That's not information that they usually provide unless someone asks, because that is a very weighted bit of information to have. Thinking about how I wanted things to go, or how I thought I wanted things to go, and plan things a certain way, I thought, okay, I'll have this baby first and this baby second, until I knew that information. And it was one of the hardest pieces of all of this. We just wanted a baby. We just wanted to conceive, have a healthy child. Gender didn't matter.
Right. So what happened next, and what helped bring you peace?
Something unexpected happened next. It was information that me and Colton both had. We knew that we had 2 boys and 2 girls, which was really neat. The nurse said, I don't know if I've ever seen this where you've had the same number of both.
Right.
And so we knew that information about 2 weeks before we transferred. But I didn't talk about it. It was
Yeah.
weight on my shoulder, unnecessary weight on my
Right.
shoulder. And just the day before, me and Colton had that conversation. I was at work and I had called him. I wasn't even at home, and I just said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know, we have to talk about this. I have to talk about it.
Right.
What do we do? You know, we're transferring tomorrow. And to my surprise, Colton said, we don't choose. We let the doctors choose. It's in God's hands. We tell them, place the embryo, transfer the one that is greatest, the highest, to give us the best chance. Gender doesn't matter. And I just,
Yes.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It didn't matter
Complete
to him. It didn't matter to me. And that was unexpected,
peace. Yeah.
but it just brought me so much peace.
So let's talk about the transfer day. Since we were one day away from
Yeah.
that, let's talk about that. What do you remember most about that experience?
I think what I remember most is calmness and stillness
Okay.
in that day. So much had led up until that moment. And for some reason, again, I was ready. I had peace about everything. Me and Colton, we went to the office. There was no one in the waiting room. They had created an environment, where things weren't hectic and there weren't a lot of people around. They brought us into the procedure room through the back door,
Wow.
which was
Nice.
pretty neat. Again, just to, I think, relax me.
Right.
My body was ready. And the doctor came in and we were able to see everything on the screen. They had a big TV screen. And someone from the lab brought in the embryo. They showed us the picture under the microscope of exactly what that embryo looked like. It was already what they call hatching
Okay.
out of its shell, which also gives the embryo the highest chance of being able to attach and adhere itself to the uterine wall. And so that process had already happened. And they went in and you saw just this little flick of white light on the screen, and that was the embryo going inside. And then under a microscope, they also checked just to make sure that embryo itself had left
Right.
the little pipette that they inserted, and then it was over. It was a very quick procedure,
Right.
something I was able to be awake for. I was able to see myself get pregnant,
Yeah.
and see that, and it was really neat,
So surreal.
very surreal,
almost.
very surreal.
Well, and then you were pregnant.
I was pregnant.
Yes. What was it like after that? I know it talks about watching the numbers. Explain to me what that is, the numbers, and knowing what your body was doing.
So 9 days after I transferred, I was to go back to the fertility clinic in order to get basically a pregnancy test, blood work done. They said that I could test at home if I wanted to, but not to get my hopes up. And I checked every day. They told me not to do that. They said nothing's going to happen for at least 4 days. But I was checking every single day.
Yeah.
And 2 days before I went to the office, I had a home test that was positive.
Awesome.
And I said, okay, this is it. And went to the office, got my blood work done, and I remember the nurse saying, "Did you test at home?" And I said yes. And she said, "Well, I knew if you said no, you were lying because because most people do." Yes, most people do. And so they're checking your HCG levels, which is basically the pregnancy hormone.
Okay.
So the day they took my numbers, they wanted those levels to be greater than 50.
Okay.
My levels that day came back 71.
Oh, wow.
So I knew I was
Yeah.
pregnant. And then they had me come back 2 days later, and they wanted that 71 to double.
Okay.
And when I came back, not only did mine double, but they went from 71 to, I think, almost 700.
Oh, wow.
So I thought maybe I would have twins at that point.
Yeah.
But that was the reassurance that I needed, that this is going to be a strong, healthy pregnancy.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, not only was it emotionally, but physical toll on your body.
Yeah.
Those daily injections after that, that you had to go through for a period of time, and the fear. So what helped you push through that phase? And exactly what did you go through?
So for up to 10 weeks, I was to take daily progesterone injections. Progesterone is a hormone that basically kind of creates a comfy, cozy environment for that embryo. And so those were probably the hardest of the process. My body was actually, as far as the hormones go, handling it well, definitely the most painful. So those injections are an oil-based solution.
Okay.
And so the amount of oil or solution that had to be injected was 2 milliliters, which is a lot,
Right.
for an injection. And the needle itself, unfortunately, had to be so big because the solution was so thick. I tried to do the first one by myself and thought I can't do this.
Yeah.
So Colton would give me every shot for 10 weeks thereafter. And I had thoughts of, why am I having to do this? I would almost dread it every day because they were so painful. But then I would have to tell myself, this isn't just for me. I have a baby.
Right.
And that's what I think kept me going for so
Yeah.
long, is she's relying on me. I'm already a mother. This isn't something I'm taking just to keep me pregnant, but she needs this. And so together, I think, me and Palmer, I knew she was a girl at that moment. I just thought, this is more than just me. She needs this too, in order for this pregnancy to continue. And I think that's really what kept me going, is she needs me, and we were going to get through it together.
Okay. So what was it like finally after that 10-week process and you could stop those progesterone injections?
Bittersweet.
I bet.
As painful as they were, every day I would sit on my heating pad, just because there were bruises and there were bumps and, everything to get through that. I was ready for it to be done, but also at the same time I was scared.
Right.
I felt like it was almost my lifeline that, am I able to do this? Or is it just medication that's keeping me pregnant? So there was a conversation that I had to have with myself almost every day of, okay, try to relax.
Mm-hmm.
Your body's going to take over at this point. It knows what to do. But I was scared. As much as I was ready for that to be over, I felt like I needed it to stay pregnant. But I didn't. My body took over at that point, and my hormone levels were elevated to where they needed to be. And sure enough, my body knew what to do and was able to continue on.
Okay, I want to pause just a moment and talk about one very powerful image that we captured together during your maternity session. And it's the one with you sitting on the ground and you're surrounded by all the needles and the little bottles of medication. Yeah. And the reminders of all that you went through to get where we were that day, basically. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what you were feeling as we took that photo? Like,
emotional, powerful, not necessarily a sense of accomplishment, but a little bit of the beauty of what pregnancy is. Everyone's journey is different. I believe I took the hard route.
Yes, you did.
Months and months to get to where I was. But I remember sitting there on the ground when we had them all lined up. And I just thought this created this beautiful baby.
Yeah.
This was time. This was tears.
Yeah.
This was pain. But this was joy.
Right.
And this was what I had prayed for so long.
Yeah.
I had her. And this is where, again, I just remember kind of just looking and thought, this is where we came from. We've come a long way.
Absolutely.
This is my journey. This is my story. I still have those syringes.
Do you?
I still have my vials. It's just, that's what got us to where we are today.
Yeah.
I will never look back and think I was less than because I couldn't do this naturally, right. And by myself. But we've come a long way, and this tells my story. As hard as it was, it was all worth it.
It was all worth it.
It was all worth it.
So when you actually saw the finished image, what went through your mind? And how did you feel to see your journey reflected back at you?
The journey is a story, but it was beautiful. It was powerful. It was uplifting. It was look at what I did. The body was resilient. My body was strong. tears joy. I made it.
Mm-hmm.
We made it. We did it.
So let's talk about her birth. Palmer made an early entrance.
Palmer made a very early entrance.
Christmas Eve, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Her due date was January 31st. And I had a doctor's appointment the day before Christmas Eve. With my age, as well as IVF pregnancies, we knew that I was at risk of developing a complication called preeclampsia. That can really happen to anyone during pregnancy. The rate and the chances of having that the older you are, and with IVF pregnancies, drastically increases. So from day one, I was taking a baby aspirin every day to increase my chances of not developing preeclampsia. But the last 2 weeks, I started retaining a lot of fluid, which is usually the telltale sign that blood pressures are probably starting to increase. Preeclampsia is a condition that causes blood pressures that can go so high they can actually cause seizures.
Okay.
And so that day at my doctor's appointment, my blood pressures were high. And we went to triage after my appointment. And when they took my first blood pressure, I started crying in that moment. And Colton was with me. And he said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby today."
Because you already knew that because
Yes. And
because we didn't say what you actually
Yes.
did. I think it's important right now. I'd like to tell everyone, what do you do?
sure. So I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for 17 years.
Okay.
And currently I work at OU Children's, which is where I gave birth, working with mothers and newborns.
Okay.
And throughout this process, I had been asked by multiple people, coworkers, patients, friends, if having the knowledge that I have is comforting, or if it makes things,
Right.
almost scarier because you know too much.
Right.
Not knowing how it would be, it was hard for me to answer that question
Right.
until I started having complications at the end. And I was grateful for that knowledge. And so when I had the high blood pressures and knew what the next steps were, I think Colton was kind of shocked. He said, "What do you mean? Like, what does
Right.
this mean?" And so that day, I was 34 weeks and 3 days when I got diagnosed with preeclampsia. And with that condition, you have to deliver the baby for both my health, so that my blood pressures don't get too high that further complications have, and also for her health. So
Right.
we knew that we were going to have a baby that day. And with her being less than 35 weeks, she was going to be an automatic transfer to the NICU, or the neonatal ICU,
Right.
there at OU. And again, it's a journey, and everyone's story is different.
Right.
We had the car seat in the car. We did not have clothes for her. We did not have cute little things to put in her bassinet, since we were so early, but we didn't get to have her there at the bedside. I was in the hospital for 4 days, and she was in the hospital for 8 days,
Okay.
until she was able to come home. And so she surprised us and was born on Christmas Eve.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, what was it like just to see her for the very first time after all you've been through? I mean, let's take you back to that moment when you actually saw her.
So when you have a C-section, they have a drape. in front of you so that you can't see, the operation going on. And when I knew she was born, I just remember thinking, cry, baby, cry, baby, cry. I heard her cry for the first time. I knew that she would be on oxygen for a while. And so once they were able to get her stabilized, they actually brought her to me as they normally do. She didn't have to go straight up to the NICU right away. And, they put her face just right up next to mine. They took her oxygen off so that I could see her face. And it was surreal.
Yeah.
I think that's really when I thought, she's here. I can breathe. I can relax. We made it. With me being on a medication called magnesium for the preeclampsia, after that moment, I was not able to see her for 24 hours.
Okay.
She would stay in the NICU. I would stay in my labor and delivery room for the next 24 hours while I was on that magnesium drip.
Okay.
And that was the longest, I think, 24 hours of my life.
Right.
Immediately, whenever I was able to get off of the medication, I was able to go to the NICU. And she would eat every 3 hours, and I would be there every 3 hours. So even though we were separated, I wanted to be there.
We're still there.
I was still there. Middle of the night feeds.
Yeah.
I was still there. I wanted it to be as natural and normal, process as it could be.
Right. Awesome. So, looking back on this entire journey, what would you say to someone who might be listening and who might be struggling with infertility?
Believe in the power of prayer. Don't ever think I can't. I'm less than. Give yourself your best shot. IVF, they told us the percentage of being able to conceive on the first embryo transfer, even though if this doesn't work, it's still only a 25% chance of being able to conceive. With your second embryo transfer, that actually goes up to 40%. Okay. So your chances of conception go up drastically. But you have to believe. You have to believe that even if there was just a 1% chance that this process is worth it. It is hard on your marriage. It's hard on your work life and having that balance, but it is worth it. Prayer. Pray every day. If it is the Lord's will, it will be done.
Okay.
And just, you have to give yourself a chance. Don't think I can't do this. Every day is tough. Every day was a choice for me. Continue with your medicine. Continue with your medicine. You want to stop, but you have to keep going.
Right.
My journey was a successful one. We want to try again to have another baby with the 3 embryos we have, and it may not happen again. I will go back through that same process, but I have to try. We will pray every day. and it's worth it. And if it doesn't work, it's okay, because you tried.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Lauren, thank you for opening your heart and letting us walk alongside you today. I thank you for reminding us that hope is not a naive wish. It's a brave decision to keep moving forward, even when the path is lined with unknowns. For those listening, if you are in the middle of your fertility journey or carrying the quiet ache of waiting, please know that you are not alone. There is no shame in your story, and there is no timeline you have to meet to be worthy of love, support, and tenderness. Lauren's journey, her story, is a testament to the strength found in vulnerability, the quiet power of persistence, and the beauty that can bloom even after sessions of deep grief. For those who know and love someone walking through infertility, let today be your reminder to check in, to sit in the silence with them, to celebrate the small victories, and to honor the hard days too. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. If Lauren's story touched your heart, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear they are not alone. And as always, here on Lisa J. Green Photography Podcast, stay bold, stay creative, stay you. We'll see you next time.